Tonight, the Democratic Party's whirlwind summer hits a crescendo. Kamala Harris closes the Chicago convention.
I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
The vibes are high now, but the political road ahead is steep. The federal government puts an end to a countrywide railway work stoppage.
Even a week's delay can be an issue.
They're sold near the candy, they're attractive to young people, and they're addictive.
And you might just also think that, oh, this product looks cool, like, let me try it out.
Now, federal action on nicotine pouches. Welcome, I'm Dan Burrett in Vancouver, and we're following breaking news tonight. Kamala Harris has now formally accepted her party's nomination for U.S. President.
Good evening!
Harris appeared in front of an electric crowd on the last night of the Democratic National Convention, telling Americans they now have the opportunity to chart a new way forward. Our Katie Simpson is inside that convention at the United Center in Chicago. Katie, that was the key moment of this convention. Walk us through Harris's highlights.
As Kamala Harris walked out onto that convention floor stage, we're up here sort of in the nosebleeds, and you could even feel sort of the area that we're standing in sort of started to shake because the crowd was so excited, so energized for this make or break moment, really, for Kamala Harris, one of the most important political speeches that she will likely deliver in her career. She tried to paint a picture of why she is the candidate that Americans should trust. In her own words, her vision of America, painting herself as a fighter for freedom. It is a theme that has come up day after day after day at this convention. What she means by that, fighting to protect reproductive rights, fighting to protect LGBTQ rights, fighting to protect voting rights. Those are the kinds of things that, again, have really resonated with the Democratic base, and she hopes can reach the base beyond this convention floor. Now, one thing that came up again repeatedly was a call for unity. We've heard Democrats try to walk a fine line this week where they want to welcome people who might disagree with their politics into the fold. Have a listen to how she tried to do that.
I promise to be a president for all Americans. You can always trust me to put country above party and self, to hold sacred America's fundamental principles, from the rule of law to free and fair elections to the peaceful transfer of power.
Democrats are trying to shape this election as a choice for voters, that they can either choose the politics of fear and division, they say that's the Republican ticket, or they can lean into the joy, the excitement, and inclusion that Democrats have tried to present to voters. Again, it's that careful line that Democrats are trying to walk, because they still are just lacing into Donald Trump, delivering scathing attacks about his record and trying to contrast his time in office with Kamala Harris's career, pointing to her time as a prosecutor, as California's Attorney General. Have a listen to how she's trying to paint that contrast and illustrate that choice.
Imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails, and how he would use the immense powers of the presidency of the United States, not to improve your life, not to strengthen our national security, but to serve the only client he has ever had, himself.
As you can imagine, when Kamala Harris finally wrapped up her speech, the crowd jumped to their feet. It was an electric feeling. It all leads into the vibes that have come out of this. You hear it from the people you talk to on the convention floor or at the convention meetings, and they all talk about the positivity, the joy. But it really has been 4 days of a lot of vibes, a lot of positive vibes, but and values, talking about the values that they want to protect, but not necessarily a lot of the substance of how they're going to get there, how they're going to cross the line, and what exactly they're going to do to implement those changes or protect those values that they say they want to do. But for now, the balloons dropped. The party-like atmosphere is starting to filter out. People will be heading out into downtown to Chicago to celebrate, to enjoy themselves as Kamala Harris now looks forward to the next leg of the campaign.
Katie Simpson at the DNC tonight. Thank you, Katie. The CBC's Paul Hunter is there at the United Center as well. Paul, a lot of love for Kamala Harris in that space. But as Katie intimated, starting tomorrow, this gets a lot harder.
Yeah, it certainly does. It's a whole new ball game. Starting right now, to be honest about it. I mean, you know, happy, shiny, shiny. That's been the way of the last 3 or 4 weeks for Kamala Harris. But, you know, look at the arena behind me. The hoopla has faded here, kind of as a metaphor, where all that shiny, happy stuff is behind Kamala Harris now. She'll still get enthusiasm in the field. She'll still get energy out there, one would presume. But now the spotlight gets more intense. You know, the criticism on her so far has been that she hasn't put a lot of policy out there, not a lot of policy specifics. A hint of it here, a hint of it there. We heard broad strokes of it tonight in her speech. Nobody expected policy specifics in her speech tonight, but the demand for policy now intensifies. In her favor has been that this has been a shortened period. She hasn't had to go through months and months of this. Everything has been compressed. That's why she's been able to say, hey, I got to get my campaign up and rolling. Policy will come. So that's been to her benefit. But the short time frame cuts both ways. Donald Trump and Republicans know they also have only a short period of time to go after Kamala Harris. They've been doing it. That will intensify. Everything changes now that the DNC has wrapped, and as she's been official nominee for a little while now, formally accepting it tonight. Kamala Harris, everything changes. That starts. It's as if the starter's pistol on the campaign goes off for a second time, and that happens now.
And Paul, one major issue she will need to contend with is her position on the Middle East.
Yeah, look, I mean, at the end of the day, it's big country, but this election will be won or lost in 7 states: Nevada, Arizona, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, with that giant population of Muslim Americans and Arab Americans. The Biden administration and Joe Biden has taken a lot of heat for the degree of its continued support for Israel during its time with the war in Gaza. There was a lot of pressure on Kamala Harris to address that tonight. People want to know, like you're saying in our first question, what does she say? What does she think? What's she going to do? Well, here's how she addressed that issue on stage tonight.
President Biden and I are working to end this war such that Israel is secure, the hostages are released, the suffering in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, security, freedom, and self-determination.
Played well in the room, Dan. We'll see where she takes that issue and all the other issues that she now has to confront as the Democratic nominee for the White House. Thorny issues and non-thorny issues, they are all on her starting now.
Paul Hunter at the DNC. Thank you, Paul. And we'll have more on tonight's speech by Kamala Harris. Our U.S. political panel will be here a little later in the hour. Now to an unfolding and dramatic Canadian story. It has been a whiplash of a day for railway workers. First, they were locked out by their employers. Then, just hours later, effectively ordered back to work by the government. But that same move has turned Canadian business fears to relief. The train's now expected back on the tracks. In modern times, CN and CP Kansas City rail freight networks, the steel and diesel bloodstream of this country, have not been shuttered at the same time. But with the economic threat that posed, it did not take long for Ottawa's political decision: get them reopened as fast as possible. Those companies move hundreds of billions of dollars in goods every year. And even this brief stoppage was a jolt to supply chains. Nisha Patel shows the impact that prompted government action.
Just 16 hours after the lockout began, the federal government stepped in.
The impacts of the current impasse are being borne by all Canadians.
The Labour Minister changing course, turning the dispute over to the Canada Industrial Relations Board.
We're asking the board to direct a resumption of activities and a return to work at the railways. We are asking them to begin the process of binding arbitration and to extend collective agreements that are currently in place.
Almost immediately, Canadian Pacific Kansas City said it was preparing to restart railway operations. CN Rail ended its lockout and initiated a recovery plan.
We are satisfied that this is coming to an end. However, we would have preferred a negotiated settlement, obviously.
The union, however, said picket lines would remain in place while it consults with legal counsel. In a statement writing, Canada's two major railways manufactured this crisis, held the country hostage, and manipulated the government. Teamsters Canada Rail Conference is deeply disappointed by this shameful decision. Together, the CN and CPKC rail networks stretch across the country and crucially link with the U.S. all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. From farmers to miners to manufacturers, even a brief shutdown hit hard.
We have not been able to ship liquid chlorine since Monday of last week due to the embargoes and moving the safety material off of the rail. So we are now on day 11 of no shipments of chlorine.
We are losing, for every day of the strike, $55 to $63 million a day in lost sales for our fertilizer products.
Small businesses, too, may have paid dearly.
I think if I can learn anything from the past couple of years, there's always a cause and effect, you know, and even a week's delay can be an issue.
With high costs and slim margins, there's little room for the unexpected.
A lot of our businesses are just barely surviving, so anything that will push us over the edge.
Nisha, as much relief as this might bring businesses, the back-to-work order doesn't deal with the underlying dispute that led to these massive work stoppages.
It's been 9 months of tense negotiations. CN and CPKC say the union hasn't been taking their offer seriously. The unions say the railway companies are trying to gut worker protections around rest periods and scheduling, and they say that will jeopardize safety. So all sides still seem far apart, and it's not clear just how long it will take them to find common ground.
Nisha Patel, thanks very much. Let's turn to Evan Dyer in Ottawa now. Evan, why did the government wait until there was already a lockout to take this action?
Well, they certainly could have acted sooner. I mean, the government could have sent this negotiation to binding arbitration at any point during the last few weeks when it was pretty clear that the two sides weren't making progress. And that's what CN Rail wanted it to do. That's what many in the business community also wanted. What really made it hard for the Liberals was the opposition of the New Democrats. And Trudeau's minority government obviously depends on the support of the NDP. And the NDP was dead against intervention, as its leader said this morning when he visited the Teamsters picket in Montreal.
We're not going to accept any interference, whether that's forcing arbitration, whether that's forcing back to work. None of that is allowed on our watch.
But Evan, it seems there was something about this stoppage that made them decide to risk upsetting the NDP?
That's right. Clearly, the government decided that the threat from the rail shutdown and all of the economic damage that it was going to entail was a greater danger than calling the bluff of the NDP. And they were already facing a lot of anger from the business community for allowing even the briefest shutdown. For instance, this is what the Canadian Federation of Independent Business answered when we asked them who they blamed more, the union or the railroads.
We blame the government, actually, because the negotiation has been going on for months and months and months. And indications of the negotiations were that both parties could not reach an agreement.
But of course, business worries mainly about the bottom line. For politicians, of course, it's more complicated. They have to worry about voters, many of whom are also workers and union members. And that doesn't only apply to the Liberals. You know, the federal Conservatives have stayed quiet through this dispute as well, and they also haven't commented on the decision to send it to binding arbitration.
Evan Dyer in Ottawa, thanks very much.
Thanks.
More potential work stoppages ahead. Air Canada pilots have voted in favor of a strike if the airline cannot reach a deal with the union. Pilots could walk off the job as early as September 17th, potentially disrupting flights for thousands of travelers. Both sides are still at the bargaining table, though, overseen by a federal conciliator. More action from the federal government tonight, this time on the sale of flavoured nicotine pouches. As of next week, it will be illegal for those pouches to be sold anywhere but from behind a pharmacy counter. Marina von Stackelberg shows why and why it took so long.
Okay, one green and one purple.
In a matter of days, nicotine pouches will be pulled from gas stations and convenience store shelves. Fruity flavors will be completely recalled. Only mint will be available if you ask a pharmacist for it.
How come they look like candy? I don't think so.
But inside this container are tiny pouches placed between your gum and cheek. Doctors say they release the nicotine equivalent of smoking 3 to 4 cigarettes. Anti-tobacco organizations have been calling for a crackdown for nearly a year. They say the pouch flavors and bright packages do resemble candy, and teens are using them.
It has been so deeply disturbing to see so many young people becoming addicted to these nicotine pouches who've never had any interaction with cigarettes.
Imperial Tobacco, the cigarette company that makes Zonic pouches, will have 6 months to pull all advertising that could appeal to youth and to change its packaging to include a warning label. Health advocates say that can't come soon enough.
The fall term in school is very important with respect to the norms that are set by kids and the introduction of new products, whether it's fidget spinners or vaping products or nicotine pouches.
Imperial says its products aren't meant for anyone under the age of 18 and tells stores to check ID. But until now, selling the pouches to kids was legal. That's because Health Canada approved Zonic to help adults quit cigarettes. The health minister has accused Imperial of using that as a loophole.
We were duped. Unfortunately, sometimes you get duped.
As Ottawa clamps down, community groups have scrambled to stop another nicotine product from addicting the next generation.
As a young person, you might not be able to differentiate exactly what it is. And you might just think that, oh, this product looks cool, like, let me try it out.
Researchers say governments need to get more nimble to better keep up with big tobacco.
We need to get past this period where the industry throws out products and we're blind until a year or two later when we say, oh, it's okay or it's not okay.
And Marina, groups say Health Canada is operating without much data at all here.
Yeah, that's right. What's not clear is how many teens experimented with pouches in the year that they were readily available. Ottawa isn't tracking that. In the last few years, Health Canada has done away with surveys dedicated to nicotine use. So just as vaping took off, and pouches hit the market. But some early research coming out of the University of Waterloo suggests that more young people in Canada are using nicotine pouches. That's what we saw happen with vaping.
Marina von Stackelberg in Ottawa. A Toronto resident is now facing terrorism charges for allegedly creating and sharing propaganda for a listed terrorist group online. The RCMP says the person was a minor at the time of the alleged offenses and cannot be identified. They have been charged with taking part in the activities of a terrorist group for the purpose of enhancing the ability of that group to carry out terrorist activity and counseling another person to commit a terrorist offense. Mounties received information from the FBI in 2021. The CBC News investigation has uncovered a growing problem in Canada's public libraries.
We've probably called the police more in the last 2 years than we have in the previous 5.
The spike in violent incidents and what experts say needs to be done.
Let's all choose Kamala Harris!
Plus, some big-name celebrities are getting involved in the U.S. presidential race, but will their clout translate into votes? We're back in 2. Some new images tonight of an extraordinary find in Botswana. That is the country's president holding what's said to be the second largest diamond ever found. The 2,492-carat stone was unearthed by a Canadian company at a mine north of Botswana's capital. Its value, not known yet, but some reports say it could be worth in the tens of millions of dollars. Libraries have long earned a reputation as safe community hubs, but data obtained by CBC News reveals a rise in violent incidents in many of them. Anya Zolojowski shows us what staff have to deal with and the calls for change.
A man waves a knife. Police move in. Video captured in a Toronto public library. Hostile incidents are happening in Canada's libraries more often than you might think. Surprising, perhaps, for some, but par for the course for many.
I've seen books thrown at staff. I've had to call police for people bringing knives, fighting among each other.
The librarian spoke to us confidentially, worried about repercussions if she speaks out. She's had to respond to aggressive behavior, suspected overdoses, and threats.
Just profound anger, and we're there, and it's directed at us.
And these incidents are on the rise. CBC News obtained data from a number of public library systems across the country. Between 2022 and 2023, Winnipeg saw a 21% increase in the number of incidents. Vancouver, a 14% increase. And Toronto, a 71% increase. Over 2,300 incidents total, or about 45 incidents per week across Toronto libraries last year. The number of suspected overdoses in Toronto's public libraries up a staggering 529%.
I've had to call 911 before for someone I couldn't wake up.
The growing crisis isn't just in urban centers, but in small towns too. In Amherst, Nova Scotia,
We've probably called the police more in the last 2 years than we have in the previous 5.
U of T professor Siobhan Stevenson has researched this trend. She says it's a sign of the times, and that libraries are often the only free place for the most vulnerable people in our communities to go.
This is not a library problem. This is a political problem. This is a social problem.
She says governments need to spend more money on shelters, affordable housing, and food banks like this one, instead of cutting that funding.
People in the trenches and running these places are busy enough. It's time that people at other levels of public service started talking about it.
We're passionate about it. We want to protect people. And then there's a lot of stuff that we didn't expect to be in our scope. You want to help people, and they're setting us up to fail.
Anya Zolojowski, CBC News, Toronto.
In the fight for the White House, some big-name celebrities are taking sides. Why those endorsements don't always pay off. Plus, the DNC is now wrapped and the next phase of the race begins. We ask our panel what it will take to maintain momentum. Over 4 days in Chicago, musicians, Hollywood actors, and social media influencers have been amongst delegates. It's created a lot of buzz. But can those August endorsements increase November votes? Magda Gabra-Salase took a look.
From musical legends to Seinfeld royalty and the Queen of Talk. Yeah! The star power is strong at the Democratic National Convention.
What we're going to do is elect Kamala Harris as the next president.
In the mix of all the DNC excitement is Doris Star Tucker. Tucker talks politics on TikTok and says the celebrity cool factor can hit home with young fans.
If my favorite celebrity is involved or wants to be involved with this party, well, maybe I do need to pay attention.
Last month's Republican National Convention had its own version of celebrity participation. Hulk Hogan, Kid Rock, and Amber Rose hit the stage, but
there's certainly more celebrities at this convention than at the RNC.
Political correspondent Tara Palmieri says while Hollywood tends to gravitate to Democrats, too much star power might be risky.
I think there is a fear of being seen too much as a part of the Hollywood elite.
But with young people, she says the right celebrity can make a difference. For instance, a social media post from Taylor Swift once caused a surge in voter registration. But does that translate into actual votes?
Can Taylor Swift mobilize people to vote? The answer is yes. We can actually measure that. Can Taylor Swift
get enough people to vote in the state of Tennessee or Virginia or whatever. I don't know.
You guys, I am at the DNC in Chicago.
But it's not all about traditional celebrities. Online content creators are being courted too. About 70 were invited to the RNC and 200 at the DNC.
People come to rely on the content that we put out there. They come to rely on our opinions.
Tucker has the views to prove it, with more than 1 million TikTok followers tuning in. Magda Gebrselassie, CBC News, Toronto.
Now let's get the latest from the Democratic National Convention. Our Paul Hunter breaks down the night with our political panel.
Fellow Americans, this election is not only the most important of our lives, it is one of the most important in the life of our nation. In many ways, Donald Trump is an unserious man. But the consequences of putting Donald Trump back in the White House are extremely serious.
Chicago at the tail end of the Democratic National Convention, where some U.S. political history was just made, with Kamala Harris becoming the first woman of color to formally accept the nomination of that party for the White House. We're going to unpack some of what we've seen the last little while, heard with two people I've become very friendly with the last little while through this run. Tia Mitchell, Washington correspondent with the Atlanta Constitution-Journal, and Brian Stelter, special correspondent for Vanity Fair. Tia, I want to begin with you. That was a show, wasn't it? I mean, I'm pretty sure that I heard the crowd chanting, yes, yes we can, off the top, which kind of takes us back to Barack Obama days, doesn't it? It felt like that kind of celebration. What's your take on what unfolded here tonight?
Yeah, I mean, she did what she needed to do. Kamala Harris is not, the most amazing speaker, right? She is not a Barack or Michelle Obama or a Bill Clinton in his prime. But she had the enthusiasm at her back, and what she had to do is make sure she didn't mess it up. She had to make sure she could show the American people that she can deliver a good speech. She did deliver a good speech. She outlined policy. I thought it was really strong, particularly when she started to talk about immigration and the war between Israel and Hamas, which are tough issues. And she framed it in a way that I think outlined her, showed her outlook on the issues. And then overall, like you said, the crowd started off, they were behind her from the beginning. It took a couple minutes for her to even be able to start her speech because the crowd was so enthusiastic. All she had to do was not lose them. And I think she did that. And I think people are going to walk away, especially if there's anyone who was watching who didn't know a lot about her or didn't know a lot about what they stood for. They can't say they don't know now. And that's really what was the most important thing she needed to accomplish.
And Brian, I do have a specific question or two for you, but I got to ask off the top, your first thoughts.
There is not a single sentence from the Harris speech that's going to go down in history. This is not about a moment of oratory. Instead, it is about a sense of turning a page in America, because Donald Trump has dominated the political discourse for the last 8 and 9 years. Some Americans want him to come back and stay larger than life. But the majority of Americans, according to polling, do not want him. And for a while, they didn't feel they had an alternative. There was so much dissatisfaction with Biden. What's remarkable about the Harris speech tonight is that Biden could have delivered most of that speech, right? He would have said most of the same lines. But now they're coming from someone new. They're coming from someone who's being reintroduced to the country. And all of a sudden, this election's about an old white guy versus a younger woman of color. I think that's what's going to be memorable about the speech tonight. Not anything Harris actually said specifically, but instead the contrast he represents and embodies. And that contrast is about American ideals, Americans hoping to improve on and create a more perfect union. That is what she's tapping into. And honestly, it's very, very hard for Donald Trump to compete with. Right now, he's calling into Fox News, sounding very upset, sounding very aggrieved. He doesn't have a strong response to Kamala Harris, and that's going to be his challenge in the weeks ahead.
One of the specifics, Brian, that she did make was a call for unity. I want to talk about it in a second, but first let's listen to a clip from her speech on that.
With this election, our nation with this election has a precious, fleeting opportunity to move past the bitterness, cynicism, and divisive battles of the past, a chance to chart a new way forward. Not as members of any one party or faction, but as Americans. And let me say, I know there are people of various political views watching tonight, and I want you to know, I promise to be a president for all Americans.
Brian, it is news to no one that this is a deeply divided country. She is making an appeal there to many people, including undecided voters. Do you think she's reaching any tonight with that?
She wants to portray Donald Trump as an aberration, as an accident of history, as something that was never meant to happen and will never happen again. We don't know if she's right about that, but she's spent this speech portraying Trump as this mistake, as this error, and portraying herself as the tough person, not the tough guy we think of as in Hollywood terms, but the tough woman. She portrayed herself as a moderate and as incredibly, exceedingly normal. Those are the words that I think she wants people to think about when they think about her speech.
And Tia, what do you make of her call for unity there?
So I think there are so many, again, everything leading up to her speech kind of set her up to success. We've heard from so many different Americans and several Republicans over the course of the week, which was just kind of unprecedented. And so it allowed her to speak with credibility about those efforts to, again, represent all Americans, not just Democrats and not just people who agree with her on all of the issues. The question is, will that resonate with enough people in the middle? Will that resonate with enough of those Republicans who are kind of over Donald Trump, ready to move on from Donald Trump, but wouldn't naturally fathom themselves as someone who would vote for a Democrat? That is something that I think we can't take for granted. It's one thing to say, I don't really like Donald Trump. I wish our party had a different nominee. It's another thing for Republicans to check the box for a Democrat. And that's why the third party candidates were such a threat to both nominees. But she's making the play. Again, other Republicans are also making the play to say, hey, in this instance, we think the best thing for the future of America to preserve our democracy is to vote for Kamala Harris. It's going to take a couple of weeks, but we'll see if any polling shows that Republicans, you know, even a small swatch of Republicans in some of those key states could be the difference.
But if I can add to that for a moment.
And what do you think, Tia? I mean, it wasn't so long ago that, in the short couple of days after Biden stepped aside and the parlor game in Washington and beyond was, well, who might it be? And it wasn't like it was everybody was unanimously on side with Kamala Harris, and people were talking about all kinds of names popped up. There were concerns that she didn't have what it takes and that she wouldn't be the right choice. Do you think tonight, or this week, and the week since then, but specifically with his speech tonight, that she managed to put those kinds of thoughts, those fears at bay?
Well, number one, I think some of the fears wasn't necessarily about her abilities as much as it was about her electability, which is something different. And I think that the party quickly coalesced around the idea, not just of supporting Harris, but believing she can win. And that happened, I think, more quickly than a lot of people thought it would once President Biden bowed out. I mean, it was almost instantaneous, and it was pretty, you know, among those people who mattered, it was almost unanimous. So again, she's got to continue to meet the moment. She did so tonight. She's, again, these, like Brian said, it's not necessarily that these speeches are going to go down in history as like the best piece of oration ever, but she did a good job. She met the moment. She checked all the boxes she needed to check. But she's got to keep that going. We've been talking about the enthusiasm she's benefited from ever since she stepped into that role, ever since Biden kind of handed the torch to her. But she's got to keep that going. She can't afford to really any missteps between now and Election Day.
We talked a lot over the last few days about that energy and that enthusiasm and the benefits of that for the Harris campaign now and in the weeks to come. But as we've also talked, she's also got to take on Trump head on. And she did some of that tonight. One of the ways we've seen today, tonight, and in previous days here at the convention was talking about Project 2025, what many see as a blueprint for the Trump presidency if he were to be reelected, something Trump, for the record, has distanced himself from. But nonetheless, that's an attack point from Democrats against Trump. I want to talk about it with both of you in a second, but let's just listen to a clip first from Kamala Harris on that tonight.
And we know what a second Trump term would look like. It's all laid out in Project 2025, written by his closest advisors. And its sum total is to pull our country back to the past. But America, we are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back to when Donald Trump tried to cut Social Security and Medicare. We are not going back to when he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act.
Not the first time we've heard about Project 2025 from Kamala Harris and Democrats. Certainly not the last. Tia, what do you think? Is that kind of tactic getting through to voters? Is it having an effect? Will it have an effect? What's your take?
I think it's absolutely having an effect. The more voters hear about Project 2025, the more they find it problematic. Particularly, it's a driving factor on Democrats, again, making them even more dug into preventing Donald Trump from returning to the White House. But I think for independents, especially women who are independents, that's another kind of group that when they hear about Project 2025, again, they find it troubling. A lot of aspects of that blueprint would really reshape the federal government. And yes, President Trump has tried to distance himself from it, but there are a lot of things in his own statements and policy platforms that reflect the ideals of Project 2025. And then there are just practical connections. People connected to Trump, J.D. Vance, writing the introduction for, there's overlap. So that's why it's such a potent kind of attack line.
Right. Brian, I said I'd come to you, but we've got to go to a break, so stand by, and we'll be right back after this break. We are back in Chicago as Democratic National Convention is winding down. There's the balloon drop, happened not too long ago. Right at the end of Kamala Harris's much anticipated speech. I'm here with Tia Mitchell of the Atlanta Constitution Journal and Brian Stelter, special correspondent with Vanity Fair. Brian, Tia gave such a good answer about Project 2025 before the break. I'm going to move on to something that's upcoming that I think we're now anticipating, the next big things, I guess, and that's the debates. Certainly presidential debates and vice presidential. I wonder what your thoughts are on the risks for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, what Democrats might be hoping doesn't happen. What do you think?
Harris has had a flawless rollout for the past few weeks. She's had these massive events, big rallies in front of crowds of thousands of adoring fans, giving scripted speeches that she can practice ahead of time. The debates, of course, are going to be totally different. She is going to be off prompter, off script. She's going to be face to face with Donald Trump. There have been reports that Kamala Harris has never met Donald Trump in person. They've never actually come face to face. So that debate scheduled for September 10th is going to be pivotal. And I think we heard a preview of the debate in her speech tonight. One of the most interesting parts of the Harris speech is toward the end when she talks about Donald Trump denigrating America, right? Calling America terrible. And the reality is Donald Trump does like to bash liberal parts of America. He calls California unlivable. He says you can't walk down the street in major cities. He lies repeatedly about these major cities, and he oftentimes criticizes parts of America that he doesn't believe are voting for him. So Harris, on the other side, right, she's going for this idea of patriotism, loving all of America. She's trying to embrace the entire country in a way that is a sharp critique of Trump. And I think we're going to hear that at the debate, or the debates, plural, as well. Right now, we don't know how many debates there are going to be. Harris has agreed to one. She says if Trump shows up, then she'll do another debate in October. But if there is that first debate in September, we're going to see these two leaders with two very different visions of America, right? An America growing or an America in decline. And that tug of war is something that I think is going to probably define the general election, Paul.
So if that is September 10th, Tia, as I look at my calendar and I look 8 days beyond that, we're at September 18th, the day as it stands, Donald Trump may be sentenced to jail.
Right.
How do you think that might play, Tia, for both parties?
So number one, I feel like Donald Trump has been very lucky when it comes to being able to maneuver in the court system. So I wonder if that date's going to stand. That's number one. But I think it's going to play out the way it's been playing out. For those who are supporters of Donald Trump, that MAGA America First base, you know, his court cases, these trials, the guilty verdict, any sentences or punishment he may face just reinforces their belief that the criminal justice system is being weaponized against him. Now, what will be interesting is how they frame it, because they've been framing it as President Biden weaponizing the Department of Justice against Donald Trump. Well, President Biden is no longer his opponent. Is he going to now use that same attack and just paste it onto Vice President Harris? Or is he going to find a different way to frame it? That'll be interesting. And again, I think there are Democrats, you know, we saw in the room, anytime there was mention of Donald Trump's legal troubles, they would say, lock him up. They want him to be held accountable.
Brian, last word to you. I'll give you the proverbial one thing to look for. If you can be brief about it, we got a few seconds left.
There is an argument now from Democrats that Donald Trump is both a wannabe autocrat, a dictator, but also this loser. How he responds to this week, this convention, may actually have a very important impact on the election, right? What he does, how he behaves, what he says about Harris, what he comments on, how he handles tomorrow when RFK Jr. is expected to endorse him. We're going to really see the general election form right in front of our eyes in the next few days.
Brian Stelter, Tia Mitchell, thank you so much. Always a pleasure. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Good to see you. Thanks.
We're going to take a break, and we will be back with more news after this.
A woman in BC is sharing her story tonight of a next-level paddleboarding excursion. She was out paddling on the water when a sea otter climbed on board. It happened off the coast just west of Victoria, BC. Tonight, that close-up encounter makes our moment.
We started to paddleboard, and it was that very cute sea otter popping out from far away. And we spotted it, and it spotted us as well. It started to do all these little tricks and coming close to us. It was very persistent in trying to climb on the board, and I wasn't too sure about it because otter can be vicious. I didn't want it to push it too much because I didn't want it to trigger the otter. It didn't look distressed. It didn't look injured. It looked pretty happy. I took my paddle, I put it in between me and the otter, and then I slowly started to make my way back to shore. Because yes, it was amazing, but we were a bit uncomfortable and scared too, right? At some point, just rolling it back, started to groom itself. It reminded me of my cat, to be honest. As we reached the shore, that's when me and my sister disembarked the paddle board. It stayed around, actually. It didn't even just go. It just wanted attention, I guess.
Better than an orca jumping on board. And they didn't get too close. Nice, smooth ride. Thanks for being with us. You can watch anywhere, anytime on the free CBC News app and subscribe to the National's YouTube channel. I'm Dan Burrett. Good night.